Hey everyone, and welcome to Her Greatness podcast. My name is Wendy Saint. I have an amazing guest for you today, someone who is not only beautiful inside and out, but that go-to person that we all need in our lives. Self-published author, mother of three, and a phenomenal woman. Sandra, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy to have you here
I am
in the
happy to be
podcast
here.
studio, and I have a lot of questions for you. Obviously, I know you personally, and you are like literally best friend, sister. You're everything to me. But you never know someone all the way, right?
Right.
Especially when it comes down to this book that you wrote, which is called Married to My Enemy. Y'all definitely need to check this out for sure, because I'm definitely a bestseller. We're speaking that into existence. So, Sandra, introduce yourself and tell me a little bit more about your amazing book, Married to My Enemy.
Married to My Enemy is basically my first project, my baby. The most important part about this book is not the title. It's also the how to get from heartbreak to breakthrough. I wanted to make sure that my readers could basically go through the process of healing that I went through during my divorce. So that's basically what made me go ahead and put it on the book.
So how did you get to the point of knowing that you wanted to write, you wanted to become an author eventually? Or is this something you didn't know, or is it something that you just poured into yourself and eventually you got to that point of writing? How did you get to that point?
Honestly, writing was my coping mechanism. I was going through so much at the time, and I needed a way to get all those emotions and anger and sadness, happiness as well. I needed to figure out a way to get it out of me. Because of the situation I was going through, I didn't really have anyone to speak to. I did, but I chose to kind of isolate myself during that time. So I needed a way to kind of escape what I was going through in a way where I can express myself fully. So writing was the option. I had no intentions at first to put it in a book. It was basically a moment of, I need to get all this off of me. And how do I do that? So I, got a journal and some paper and just started writing it out old school. As time went on and as I was still going through my situation, a lot of people were coming up to me asking questions, asking for advice, and I really couldn't understand why, because I was still going through it. But then I realized it's because I had some sort of knowledge as to what was happening. And I guess people were interested on the ways of how I was handling my situation. And then I decided, you know what? I'm not going to allow this story to just sit in the books. It's going to actually help somebody. So I decided to publish it.
That's pretty cool. And that's amazing, because we as women experience and go through so many things in life, especially within our relationships, that we don't want to talk to anybody. We don't want to speak to anybody about it. We save face. And what we end up doing is we deal with it inside and nobody knows. And what it's doing is killing us inside.
You're absolutely right.
And I've always heard that writing can be very therapeutic. So that was definitely your go-to, and you kept track of that, of your notes of all these years, and you pretty much converted it into a self-help book.
That is absolutely correct, because it wasn't always. So my ex-partner, his thing was he needed to argue back and forth with me. When I realized that was his thing, that's when I completely shut down. So when things were happening and I needed to kind of, how you balling it up, it really doesn't help. It kind of explodes. So I made sure I explode on paper. Rather it was a napkin if we were at a restaurant, or if it was my phone and I couldn't have paper and pen at that moment, whatever feelings I was dealing with that day, I made sure I wrote it down. It was a little tough putting it together into a book. Me being, I've never done it before.
Reliving that. You had to relive that moment.
Right. And it was kind of hard to even reread the book in the process of putting it together. And I can honestly say I haven't read it in its entirety as it is in a book, in a draft I did, but as it being in an actual book, I have not read it in its entirety. There are moments that I still have to kind of process in order for me to move to the next situation. but it was therapeutic. I needed that escape because I felt like I was being taunted a lot. And in order for me to get myself together and to continue being a mother to my 3 children in that process, I thank God that that was on my heart to write it out versus exploding it out in those moments.
I think that's pretty cool. But that brings me back to my next question. As a mother of 3 and everything that you've experienced during this traumatic situation that you're going through, how are you able to hide that away from the kids? Were they able to see what was going on? Did they actually have to like go through what you were going through and be in that setting? Do they know how he is as a person, or where were you at mentally? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
It was not an easy process. Understand that as much as you think you're hiding from your children, they already know. There's levels to what they know, but they already know. They feel your energy. So rather you try to fake the funk or not, they know. That's first and foremost. And I didn't understand what that really meant until the children were interviewed and asked what their everyday life was like.
Where were they interviewed at?
They were interviewed by the police department. There was a domestic situation that happened between my oldest and my ex-husband, and they were interviewed by investigators, and each and every one of them had their own tell of the story, but it was exactly the same. The domestic violence, the verbal abuse, they literally had their own perspective of what was happening day to day, but it was essentially the same thing. And I didn't know that they knew all these things because I thought that they were asleep or that they didn't see or they didn't hear, but the kids know. My children at that time were under 10 years old, so I thought that they didn't know much because I'm like, they're young, but again, they understand.
What were their ages?
Fully aware. At that time, my oldest was 8, I believe, which would mean my middle was 7 and my baby girl was 6. But I really think it started around when she was about 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for women out there that feels that they need to stay within a toxic relationship or marriage just for the kids? What advice do you have for women out there or men?
I will say that it doesn't work because, again, like I said, the kids know. And as parents, we want to make sure that we have an environment for our children where they can be safe and loved and cared for. So that would mean your environment would reflect that. I thought that would be the issue. The situation with me, because the way our relationship started, I thought it started organically. In actuality, he's a predator. So everything was planned out at that moment. I didn't understand.
You think so?
I know so. I didn't understand what that looked like until after the fact, after I removed myself, and I was like, yeah, he preyed on me. But, that's a different discussion. As to your question, staying for the children does not work because your children wants to see you happy. The same way you want to see them happy and laughing and having a great time, enjoying their lives that you work so hard to give to them, they want the same thing for you. So staying in a situation when you know it's not going to grow for you emotionally, it's not growing physically, it's just getting worse, and the environment is not open or safe for you and those children. I mentioned in my book that for the women or men that's in a situation where it's physical, that a plan needs to put in place. If you do not have a village being family and friends, there's so many resources out there that can get you a village to make sure to get you into a safe place. So with me, I needed my village, but I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to reach out to my village. I have a big family.
What were you embarrassed of? You're embarrassed of them not believing you, embarrassed of being vulnerable? Were you embarrassed of what? Like, because you
It's
saved
some
face
of,
for so many years that you
yeah,
thought you had the perfect situation, or what was it? Why
I
would you
feel
feel
like the
embarrassed?
embarrassment more so came on a mixture of all of those things. Um, I knew that in a crunch where things could get to a space that I could not handle, I knew that if I reached out to my village that they would drop any and everything to make sure me and my children were safe. I knew that. But because of my own personal upbringing of as a grown adult, you have pillars, and normally those pillars are your parents. My parents have been deceased by the age of 10. Both my mom and my father had passed away, so those main pillars are not there. And because of that, those moments, I had to kind of grow up really fast in making sure that I'm okay in every aspect. Not to say that I don't have family or friends that did not interject or help raise the woman I am today.
A
It's a
phenomenal woman.
it's a different mindset when, in those moments that I was in, I could not pick up the phone and call my mom and say, "Hey, mom, this is what's happening." Because in general, as a grown adult, you still to this day want to pick up mom and say, "Hey, mom, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah." Even if you don't have that kind of relationship, you don't know how deep that is until you're going through something and you wish you had those pillars with you, because that's what that was for that moment. I really wish I did have those pillars with me. But anywho, I was ashamed because I did not want to include my family because the person I was with was very violent. And I felt like if something were to go off, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if someone had gotten hurt because of me.
Gotcha.
So that was one. And two, no one gets married and think that you're going to go through situations like that, and you're going to want to, hurry up and get on the phone and say, girl, this is what's been going on with me. It's not that easy. And then there's the naiveness in it.
In the
Me
culture
thinking,
of, what happens in the house stays in the house.
right. I, at that time, was very much in church and hearing a lot of the things that were being said during that time. You can endure, you can go through, everything's going to be all right. Just kind of pray on it. Things going to work in your favor. All of those things were incorrect.
Wait, so do you think that you stayed in your situation longer than you really wanted to because you felt like maybe the influence of the church had something to do with it?
That's one of the things. Yes.
Wow.
One and two, I didn't want to raise my children without their father.
Gotcha.
So when my mother was very ill, there were so many people that spoke on my life that were saying, well, you don't have a mom, you have a dad, you're going to be out here in these streets, foot dragging and carrying on. So I
And you
was
beat that statistic.
right. I was very adamant of beating that system. I'm like, I'm not going to be that girl. I'm going to, work my butt off, get my, achieve my goals and make my parents proud, even though they're not here. That was always my goal. So when I got married, I was like, okay, well, here we are. I'm married now. And that was one of the checks on the list.
Because you always wanted a family.
Right. So having a family was extremely important to me. And I have a relationship with God where I basically, I'm talking to you. I just kind of look here, God. Okay, this is what I want.
Yeah.
I want this. I don't want to be left alone. You've taken my mother. You've taken my father. Now it's just me. So I don't want to be alone. But what we don't understand is just like how we pray to God, the devil's sitting there listening to.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I got that husband. I had the children. Now I can say we were put together to
Produce beautiful children.
produce these three human beings that God is entrusting me with. And that's basically it.
So now that you're in this new phase, new chapter in your life, raising three beautiful children. What are their ages now?
My oldest is 13, going on 23.
Yeah.
My middle son, he will be 12 next month. And my baby girl is 10.
I forget their ages all. I really do. Shame on me, guys. Shame on me.
They're giants, so you can't really guess how old they are.
And it's like raising kids, and they're so close in age. Can you imagine?
I thank God for that. Let me tell you why. Because as time go on, I'm just now getting a teenager, which I had a little moment about that.
And you're still young, so you
Yes,
you
honey.
started young.
I am a fine auntie, just to let y'all know. That just has children. But anywho, but yeah, I love them to death. I really do. They are everything to me. I've always done everything I needed to do to make sure that I leave something for them.
How would you feel about them reading your book?
So they're very anxious to read it.
That's nerve-wracking, don't you think? Because there may be certain things in there you don't want them to know. You may want to protect them about things because, at the end of the day, they do love their father. There's
They do.
father still in their lives. So how do you
Yes.
protect them of reading information or things and they were in the home that they may not even know?
And that's the thing. I know when they start to read it, little things are starting to click for them. But again, they've experienced these things. Again, I didn't understand how much they've experienced or know or remember until they were interviewed and they just basically put it all out there on the table. I'm okay with the kids reading it. And here's why. It's the perspective, my side, right? But then even though it's telling the stories of what I went through, I don't really put anybody in a bad light. I'm literally stating facts as to what I went through. Now, the names are changed in the book, and it's not all bad. It's not like I'm just spilling the tea and that's it. It's really telling my side of the story, but as I was going through, I'm also holding myself accountable as to why I was in that situation for so long. It also shows me being vulnerable. My kids will see me in a different light, and I feel like they'll understand why I made the decision that I made, and everything will come full circle. I don't want them to read it right now because they're still young. Even though my oldest is begging me every single day. He's like, I understand, and I remember a lot of stuff. And I'm like, well, if you have any questions, we can have a discussion about it. But I honestly don't want you to read it right now. And also because some of the characters in the book are still in their lives. So I want them to have their own perspective of these people without hearing it from me. I want them to go through these situations, the ups, the downs, and the ugly, without my input. Now, as they get older and they read it, it'll all make sense. But no, not right now.
So shifting gears. So as you have 3 amazing kids, right? And you're a very confident woman. Okay.
I mean,
you're beautiful inside and out, of course.
Hello.
How do you instill that into your children, right? Because sometimes when we go through things in life based off of past relationships and things like that, our kids may see that and say, they can feel that, like that self-esteem issue that you may have. They may inherit some of that. They may date certain people based off of what they've seen their parents date or anything like that. How do you instill that confidence to let them know, you know what, don't deal with the BS, put your foot down, set boundaries, and do what you need to do, in the future whenever they start to date? Hopefully they're not dating now, but No.
They got little friends, but they not dating. Anywho, so as you stated, setting boundaries. That was one of the main issues in my marriage. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand it. I wasn't taught about setting boundaries. So a lot of these things that I went through in my marriage, it was kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It was kind of like it's trial and error.
Yeah.
So that was a huge thing about boundaries, because had I set boundaries, we would not have been together for the amount of time. I may have had only one of the 3 children that I've had, because I never set any boundaries, and he kind of went on his own tangent, if that makes any sense. So with my children now, I am not a gentle parenter. I am very blood raw to the grind with my children. I tend to not lie to them. I may try to distract them based off of the questions that they ask me, but I keep it as real as possible
So you don't hold
with my
anything
children.
back with them?
No,
What if they
because
see specific things on TV that you're just not ready or prepared to talk about? How do you
but
handle
here's the
that?
thing. If you're not ready to talk about the things that first of all, you have to acknowledge the fact that they coming to you.
That's a blessing.
Right. If the kid could come to you and say, "Hey, mom, I want to explain the situation I felt when I saw this girl I liked." Now, that could be a spot where you're kind of like, ugh, I don't want it. You can think it because it's there. You want to say something to yourself like, yo,
I'm not
what's
ready
going
for this.
on? But in actuality, if you can't have those conversations with your children, you do know they're going to reach out to somebody else. And that somebody else don't know your child, don't know their upbringing, don't understand them, don't love them the way you love them. So granted, there's a lot of cringy questions that they have, but you have to kind of swallow it for that moment and kind of have an open discussion with them so that they feel comfortable to come at you with everything. And that's what I want, because I didn't have that, to be able to be candid, with a parent and say, hey, I feel this way about this boy, and it don't automatically go to, no, boys are nasty, they're going to get you pregnant.
Right. Growing up, we didn't even have that to feel comfortable enough to even speak with our parents about anything like that. Growing up in the house, my dad told us straight up, look, boys are bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away from them. One day they want to give you a kiss. Next day they want to hug. No, they want to hug. He said, hey, Didi, first they want to hug. After the hug, they want to kiss. After the kiss, they want to touch your titty. That was the talk that my dad gave us.
Right.
Nothing else in between, no into details or anything like that. He just told us to stay away from them and that they only want one thing. That was our talk. In this day and age, it's different because kids are exposed to so many different things on social media, videos, YouTube, all these things they're exposed to. How do you protect them? And
so
that's back to the confidence. How do you instill the confidence in them when, they're saying all these things about, you got to look this way, you got to be this way, you got to have this, you got to have that. They're at that age where they're being exposed to a lot.
I taught my kids at a very, very young age who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Our family is very strong on, it's a Joseph thing.
Yeah,
like we
absolutely.
say that all the time because it's true. So with my son, as far as getting him dressed, it's affirmation. When he was little, I always used to tell him how good he looks, and I'll ask him, how do you feel about your nose? How do you feel about your mouth? How do you feel about this and that? And this is at a very young age, just so that he can explain to me how he feels about himself, and then I could build off of that. I had a lot of those moments as they were growing up. Now at this age, they already know they fine. Again, I have 2 boys and 1 girl. You can't tell them nothing. Now for my baby girl, it's a little bit, more intricate. So when I was going through my situation, and this is something like 5 years ago, I know some people have heard, don't look through your man's phone unless you're trying to lose about 60 pounds. See, that's what happened. Sandra looked through that man's phone, and she lost 78 pounds in 3 months. Because that's when I realized that, okay, this is it. Not only is he cheating, but he embarrassing with it too. So everybody know he in these streets. So in the midst of that, I lost all this weight, and I was going through a huge flip. Like, I want to say my world just kind of flipped upside down in regards to my confidence. I've always been confident because my uncle who raised me, and I call him my daddy, he used to tell me every single day that you are beautiful.
Till this day. Absolutely.
If he sees me, I could have eye crust, deodorant stains on my clothes, and that man would tell me I'm beautiful.
Yep.
So that is that. But when I was going through that situation, I lost all that weight. I lost a lot of my confidence. I've always been somewhat of a big girl. Back in the day, I was like a tall glass of water with some melons, and nobody couldn't tell me nothing in school. But as I grew older, I put on a little weight, and then I had children. I put on a little bit more weight. And as I was, after I had my daughter, I was like over 240 pounds. And my husband at the time was a trainer, and I could not lose weight. I could not get my body right. But I know why, because my focus wasn't me getting healthier. It's more of, okay, I need to get together for my husband, right? So, of course, I wasn't going to lose the weight because the focus was off.
Mm-hmm.
So, lost those 78 pounds, and I was going through this body transformation that I really could not understand. I've always been a woman with
Did
big
you like
breasts.
the way that you look when you lost the weight, or were you
Not
like...
really. And you couldn't tell if you were on the outside. I was, baby, the way Sandra would walk into a room. And why am I talking about myself in the third person? Anywho, whenever I would walk into the room, you could not tell me nothing because I knew I was fine, right? But on the inside, first of all, I was going through so much emotionally that I couldn't even enjoy it. I
And you
went from
probably didn't
wearing
even notice.
No, I went from a 2X to a small medium. I can't recall the last time I was ever in a small medium. So going through that, my face changed. I lost my boobs, and that is the prime of this package. So everything was gone, and I didn't understand where do I go from here? And as I was going through that situation, and I started my self-confidence on the inside grew stronger. I was like, okay, now I'm going to do it for me. So I started to really eat. I was working out, but it was more on a spiritual journey, right? And I'm saying all of this because my daughter saw me in that transition from losing all that weight to gaining some healthy weight back and living vibrant in that, to gaining all the weight back to the stage that I'm currently in now. And I didn't understand how much of an impact it'd make it for her until these recent conversations that I've had with her recently about the way she looks and how she feels about herself, because she had gained some weight during the summer as well. And now I'm going through the process of, okay, now Sandra, you need to get yourself together because she's watching you.
Right.
So that as you're getting healthier, she's going to want to get healthier as well, because, they're a reflection of you.
Absolutely.
And she sees me, she looks up to me. So that is what I'm going to use as my motivation to get into a healthier weight currently. But as I stated, no matter if I'm a size small or a 2X, you can't tell me nothing because I love myself.
That's the beautiful part about it, because confidence is definitely important. At an early age, it was instilled in us from our parents about loving yourself, don't care what anybody think or anything like that, and then just accepting yourself for who you are. A lot of people out there, may experience difference, may say, you know what, I want to change this. I want to change that. I want to get surgery. And especially now with so many women getting surgery, they want to make these changes to themselves. It's like, some people are like, well, I'll change that. I'll make this change. I know, like, for me personally, and not saying this against anyone that wants to do surgery, because you can do whatever you want. For me personally, I would just rather work out, tone it up, and do whatever I have to do in a sense, because once you make that change, it's hard to, go back to where you were. So what is your definition of peace?
Right. So with peace, I didn't really know what that was until I actually experienced it. As I stated, I was in a situation, it ended like 5 years ago, and that's when I realized what true peace meant. But it took me a while. So for the first 6 months to a year, I was looking behind my car to make sure my ex wasn't popping up out of nowhere.
I hate to laugh, but yeah, that's real.
No, it's real. It was real anxiety. I know that's really when I realized I have anxiety issues. But yeah, so for the first 6 months to a year, I kept doing that. And then also I would go out and feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like, girl, it's 3:00 in the morning. Why
You
you
felt
ain't home yet?
guilty.
I was so used to being a wife that I couldn't, it took me a while to get used to the fact that, girl, you can go out and have fun and not have to worry about it.
How long did it take for you to get to that space of being comfortable
Taking a
enough?
breather.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me almost a year and a half to say. That's the, getting comfortable at one, not having to answer, call, check with someone, to, my ex used to feel away if I'm having a good time. Like if I'm having a good time with my sisters or something like that, it was always something happening. So, it took me a while to kind of get out of my shell. But baby, when I got out,
Yeah, you're living your best life.
when I got past that year and a half of, not being so anxious and whatever, and we went to New Orleans.
We did.
First time on the plane.
Had a great time. Wait, say that again?
First time on the plane at that time. I was 35. 35 years old. First time leaving Florida on the plane.
So you had fear in that as well, too. So dealing with fear, anxiety,
all of that.
transitioning to the new you, this new journey.
So there is the Sandra prior to marriage. There was the Sandra during marriage. And then there's this lovely Sandra now after marriage. And I'm so interested in me, like learning these new things about myself. I get so excited, and acknowledging, my intelligence on certain things, because these were things I never took the time, and you don't know it while you're going through it, or while you're in the marriage and tending to children, tending to the husband, and tending to work, and blah, 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 and family. You don't really realize it until after the fact, and the storm kind of slows down, and it's just you. So I had to get to know me, not the wife me, not the mother me, but me, who I am. And it was pretty interesting. It still is. I'm having a good time,
Do you know what I notice about you differently now? For all these years, you always, and you're still this person as well too now, but you're just on a different level. You've always managed to put everybody else before you.
Mm-hmm.
Always. That can be really, really exhausting.
It is definitely so.
And now that you're in this new season, this new journey that you're embarking, and you're realizing, you know what, you're setting boundaries, and you're like, you know what, this is my time. And you are, not only are you aging backwards, you're having a time of your life, you're traveling, you're having a good time, you're doing what you want to do, and you're creating this amazing relationship with your kids as they're getting older. It's like you're more in a comfortable space. You have more peace within you, and you're like taking every day, one day at a time. You're not answering to nobody, and you're taking every day one step at a time. You're living it the way that you want to. You're happy. And the beauty is you say no when you want to say no.
The crazy thing about it is exhausting. I was operating out of an empty cup, pouring into everyone around me. And the dangerous thing about that is those people were not pouring back into me, right? So I'm naturally a giver.
Yeah,
I am a person that I like acts of service. I could meet you today, and if you say your favorite meal is tuna noodle casserole, and your birthday is next week, I'm going to make you that tuna noodle casserole for your birthday. And that's just how I am. It doesn't.
You have a good heart.
It doesn't come, like, it's not by force. It literally just comes out of me naturally, right? Which a lot of people will say, those that are natural givers, they attract takers. And that's what it was. I was just around people that was just taking. And the fact that I didn't understand what boundaries were, they would keep taking and never replenish, right? The interesting about that is in this season, I pour back into myself. So I'm not operating out of an empty cup. Now, granted, I get a little busy. And even with the busy, it's not like, oh my God, this is so dreadful busy. It's like, I got things to do. I'm, moving around. I could recall a time where I sat back and was like, I have nothing going on. It is quiet. I remember exactly where I was when I had that conversation with self.
This is getting good, guys.
Why is things so quiet? I have no drama going on in my life. kids are tended to, my husband tended to, we got this little business that he trying to take off with. And I'm just sitting there like, but I have nothing for me. There's
Wow.
nothing here for me.
So
And
that's when reality really set in.
girl, reality slapped the dog, you know what, out of me. Because literally that next, 3 months after that, the shit hit the fan. And
That's what I wanted to shift gears into, is surrounding yourself around certain people can make all the difference in your life.
Yeah.
Whether you have positive family members, a significant other, people who you think your friends are really not your friends, or if you want to embark on something new, whether it's a business venture, but then you have friends that are hating on you, like, you shouldn't do that, or that's stupid, but they're not doing it. You wouldn't even switch bank accounts with them. Can you imagine if you're in a space mentally and you want to do something and your body and your mind is telling you do this, but you don't have that support system around you? It's like, how do you get to that place of really just pushing yourself to get to that point without the support system?
So that's the key to that, is the strength that you have within yourself, building that up within you. We came in here by ourselves.
Well, not me. I have a twin.
But y'all didn't come out exactly at the same time.
Right. You know what I mean.
So building that self-awareness and that strength within yourself is key, right? And then holding yourself accountable when you make those mistakes. Call yourself out on it so that you know how to adjust and get yourself together. It starts within you, right? And then also understand, I always tell my siblings this all the time, you know who really with you, rocking with you during the main events of life: weddings, birthdays, funerals, starting your own business, stuff like that. That's when you really see who's really there for you. 20 out of 20, I'm going to tell you right now, if you were to start a business of selling mugs, the first 10 customers will be strangers. It will not be. It will not be your family.
Even on social media, when you're putting posts out and stuff like that.
Because a lot of the times, your family is not taking you seriously.
Right, exactly.
Right? They're like, that's a little nut that used to run around, picking his boogers. He ain't really on that. So strangers, and I realized that as with my book, I had people reaching out all over the place that I didn't even know and expressing how they felt reading the material, and
they were proud of you.
And I didn't understand. So here's another. I'm gonna put a pin in what we were just talking about, explaining the growth within myself. When people were giving me, praise on this book, it took me a while to take on what they were so grateful about, because I'm not used to that. I wasn't used to people saying, "Girl, da 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 da," because I'm the strong friend, right? Or the strong sister.
Sometimes
strong
you don't want to be the
So,
strong one.
Right. Sometimes you don't want to be the strong one. It does get exhausting. So it took me a moment to take heed on those that were saying, "Sandra, I'm so proud of you. You're so strong." And it took me, I tussled with that for so long. I didn't really talk about this to anybody, but I tussled with that for so long because that was lack of confidence within myself, within the basically the talents that I have within me. I am a kind of person where if I see something in a moment, I'll learn it, study it, master it, do it, and then I'm done with it. But I can still do it if I pick it up again. So it took me a moment to really take on and be okay with people saying, "Sandra, you are strong. Sandra, you are, a force to be reckoned with. I'm so proud of you. You did amazing things," and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I could not gravitate towards it because those are things that I didn't see within myself. Right. In those moments, I could not, like at my book launch, I was in tears.
That was amazing, actually.
Literally
proud
from
moment.
the time
proud moment.
From the time my book launch started, every person that walked in, I was bawling. And some people didn't understand Why I was bawling like that, it was tears of joy, but then it was also like, yo, like they actually, they hear me, and they're here for me, and they appreciate what my material. Like it took everything in me not to bawl out the whole time. We still had an agenda to push at the time, so I had to stop crying, but I cried so much because the situation and the environment I was in prior to, it was nothing but people sucking the life out of me.
Negative environment.
And to be in that space and just to be they poured into me, and I will never forget that night. That was so special to me. And I've had more of that, of people just pouring into me, because when you're so used to operating out of a dry cup, and for people to start pouring into you in those moments, it's a beautiful thing. So those are like just little tidbits of what I've gotten out of that.
Listen, if you all are definitely enjoying this, you have to make sure that you get this book, Married to My Enemy. You will not be disappointed. You'll learn a lot. Maybe certain things you may want to implement into your daily lives, right? I think that's awesome. Now, growth. Your growth process. What are you doing now? Are you dating? And how do you keep going from here? Where do you see yourself going in life? Your short-term and long-term goals.
Right
So
now,
that's a lot to unpack there.
That is a lot, especially for me. I am currently working on my second project. It's called.
You have the name yet?
Yes, it's called Hunger to Heal.
Oh, okay.
It is a 30-day journal process. There's a piece of that in this book as well, and I just kind of continued on with it. Because a lot of the times people are like, how did you get out of that? How did you make it out okay and in good spirits and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because I had a hunger to heal, which is true. I was hungry for it.
That's how you came up with the title?
Huh?
That's how you came up with the title?
Yes. Earlier you mentioned that, you write notes to yourself and affirmations and so on and so forth. That was huge in my process. So when things kind of broke and everything was out and it was exposed, and I was kind of like, I felt like God put me in that position so that I can deal with this my way with God, obviously. But really, I got into a space where I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. Where do I go from here? Like, yes, my husband is cheating on me. Yes, he's cheating on me with someone that I know. Yes, all of the so-called best friends I had at the moment were fully aware of the affair and just had me out here looking like a dummy. These are all the things that are happening right now in this reality, right? I just didn't understand what to do. I'm like, okay, so where do I go from here now? How do I react? How do I start, right? And I Googled. How do you get from, how do you go through a heartbreak? How do you heal from it? How do you go through? I literally Googled it.
But it was all that was part of the growth process.
Right. All of that brought me to a space of tweaking it and making it make sense for me. And how do I break it down for my sister? How do I break it down for my neighbor, my friend, or something? So I was adamant of watching the show with Gabrielle Union. I can't remember the name of it now.
Mary Jane,
yes, where she wrote notes to herself. So I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I started looking up affirmations and I started to write them everywhere I was. I was intentional on switching my environment. Even though I was still staying with my abuser, we were in separate rooms for over a year at that point. And I was intentional as to what I invited in and what I was dishing out.
And you still live by that till this day?
Till this day. Very intentional of switching the environment, right? And then as time went on, I had moments where I had to go and check out with myself. Like, all right, Sandra, which would be me in the mirror. How are you feeling today? And looking at myself dead in the eye. And that was a thing too. It took me a while to get to that point.
So do you have like a routine? Do you do this daily? What part of your growth process? Or
At
is
first,
it
it
that you
was
check
every
in every
day.
now and then?
It was every day. Check in and say, Sandra, where you at? And let's be honest. I don't care how ugly it is or how judgmental you think someone else. This is just me and you. How are you feeling? I had those moments. And then as time went on, it went from daily to every other day to weekly to monthly to when I know shit hitting the fan, it's getting rough. I need to come into myself, and then I'll go and have those moments. So as time went on, adjusting what it looks like to get myself together, and also being happy with clearing out the bad. Those best friends were gone. The husband is gone. The children was going to the husband every other weekend at that moment. And the weekends where the children's were gone, I'm connecting more with my family because I was standoffish for a while. And then adjusting that, getting better at doing that. And then as time went on, connecting with people, networking outside.
Networking is great. 100%. So with the networking, right? Because you're going around the question I asked, are you dating? And we're going to end this soon because I know it's getting good. You guys may want a part 2 on this because this is actually getting hot. Are you dating, and how exactly do you look at relationships now after getting out of that situation? And it's been 5 years. Study shows that realistically, after getting out of a relationship, et cetera, you should start dating after about a year or so. It's different for everybody, but are you dating?
Listen, I dabbled here and there.
And we're almost done.
But I do not have a boyfriend. I'll put it that way. And I'm not actually looking for a boyfriend. I'm one of those women who did the marriage thing.
So you'll never get married again?
I'm not saying I would never. I won't say never. Because that's not realistic. But I'm not thirsty for it. A lot of people say, well, because of that, they're going to come at you.
That's why they're coming at you so hard because
and they do.
They want a piece of that pie.
I
understand.
They
see the confidence.
Right.
They see you're beautiful inside and out. They see you're a great mother. These are all the reasons why they're gravitating towards you. So what advice, as we go ahead to end this off, so you're not dating. So guys, if you're out there, she's free.
Don't come at me unless you're ready.
As you know, this has been such a great episode of Her Greatness with our special guest, Sandra Cius, and her amazing book. And we got to learn so much about you inside and out. I'm so glad that you're here for sure, and that you took the opportunity to do this interview. And we've laughed. Good thing we did not cry. But if we would have ended off, kept on going a little bit longer, we probably would have cried. So what are your last advice for women out there in this new journey?
I would say to my sister, because I'm going to call y'all out as my sister, take the time to feed into that little girl inside of you that, who may have endured trauma, who hadn't, who just simply, I want you to dig deep inside and hug on her. Because as you hug on her, that'll help you where you are right now.
And there you have it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching Her Greatness Podcast. I'm Wendy. This is Sandra Cius. Don't forget to check out her book, Married to My Enemy. And until next time, y'all, don't
it's
forget
on
to subscribe.
Amazon, y'all.